Hey everybody, today we're going to take an image that looks like this and we are going to convert it to a painting that looks like this using a major plugin for Photoshop. Are we ready for this? Let's do it! Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And today we're going to take a look at a plugin that's pretty popular. I've been using it for quite a few years, and it is called Alien Skin Snap Art. In fact, it's version Snap Art 4. And let me just show you the website. I'll put the link in the show notes for you, but let's take a look at what this is about. Now, again, it is a standalone program or it could be used as a plugin. And if we take a look at, let's take a look at some examples here. Before I go through a demo of the product, I'll show you there's different categories of art that you could actually do. It's pretty cool stuff. And I'll show you some tricks in Photoshop that we can do after we use Snap Art 4. But let's talk about the price. It's really reasonable, in my opinion, for being both a standalone product and as a plugin to Photoshop. So if we take a look at this, if you've never bought it before, brand new, it is $79. If you're going to buy the entire suite of products that Alien Skin has, it actually has like Exposure 7 and other products, including Snap Art, you can get that for $149. If you're coming from an old version, it's going to be $49, which is a bargain. But Snap Art 4 has been around for about I like to say 5 years, 4 to 5 years. So I don't know if they're ever going to have an update or not. Seems to be a very strong program the way it is right now. Anyhow, so let's take a look at how we would use that as a plugin in Photoshop. Now, first of all, I need an example to work with. So we're going to start with just a basic still life. And with that selected, I'm going to do Control J or Command J on a Mac that duplicates the layer. The only reason I'm doing this is I want to have a before and after look as to what this is doing for us. And then you're going to find as a plugin, it's going to be under Filter drop-down menu in Photoshop. Alien Skin's a category, and there is Snap Art 4. When I select this, a major program actually opens up. And let me just highlight, I'm not going to go through everything here, but if you look, there's a category like Color Pencil Look. And it actually shows you little thumbnails of what it would look like. If you click on something, it'll actually render that out for you. And then you could change the styling of this. On the far right, we'll take a look at the different sliders and things that we can actually get into. But this is just a category called Color Pencil. You'll have a category called Comics. Again, different looks, and we can alter and change that with the sliders on the far right side. Coming down to like, pencil sketch. So you can see if you choose different ones like charcoal versus detailed, etc. So again, I'm not going to hit them all, just highlighting a few. One of the most popular ones that I like to use is called oil paint. And when I use that, generally I'm working with either abstract or colorful. Colorful is just a little bit more saturation, but I can always add that later. I think this is a little bit more abstract right there. So that's why it's called abstract. So I'm going to start with that, and that's my base image I'm going to work with. Now, I'm going to come over here to a category in the far right called background. If I click on that, it opens up these different sliders, and basically it's showing me that I can change the brush size that was used to make this. So if I move this all the way to the left, it means it's just using a smaller brush size. So you're getting a little bit more detail in there. If I push this all the way to the right, now it's really, really abstract. So again, using the little icon here on the left side gives you a starting point, but you can come over here and really adjust this based on your needs. And again, it's very subjective and how you're going to use this, but I'm going to leave that maybe about right there. Photorealism, well, if I move this all the way to the right, now it's starting to look more like a photograph versus all the way to the left. And I'm going to leave that there to the left. Paint thickness, it has 100% on this one as a starting point, but if I move this back, it's less. I am going to push it all the way to the right. Stroke length, if you're using longer length of stroke versus a smaller stroke length. So I'm going to leave that about right there. And in color variation, I like it at 12, but just to show you, if I push this way to the right, you can see what it's doing. So I'm going to leave that back close to 12. Yeah, we'll leave it right there. Okay, so I'm done with the background right there. Then I jump to something called detail masking. This is where the magic happens, by the way. This is an area that we start out with, and it says the mask is empty. So basically what it means, let me just make my brush size a little bit smaller here. If I click on new area, click down on that, and then come over here, and I'm going to paint over, this is just a mask, over certain areas. And they're highlighted in red so I can actually see that. And then I can move these sliders, and the sliders here will adjust just the areas I painted in. So if I push that photorealism all the way up, the only area it's affecting, if I hover over the dot over here, because that's where I started with, it's affecting just the areas in the red. So if I want to push up a little bit more detail in those areas by adding more photorealism, I can change the stroke length, color variations. I'm just going to leave that alone for right now. But again, this is just giving me control in certain spots. Now, here's what's really cool. If I need to add a new area, I would just click on this, go back and start painting in different sections. As an example. And then I could make some adjustments with that. And now I got two masked areas, and they're represented with these little circles, those little, circles. But there's a dot in this one. There's a black circle. And if you look at that, it's showing me that area that I just masked with the controllers, the control pieces on the right. If I go over here to this one and I click down on this, so the black circle's inside this one, the sliders over here now reflect what I did over here. Now I'm going to go back to this area right here, and I'm going to add more to this. So by me selecting this, I'm going to click and drag over this area and over here to add a little bit more photorealism to it. But let's say I made a mistake. And since I'm still on this dot right here in the area I masked, I can come over down here to the minus button, and it will subtract what I just painted. So now you can see I'm taking away what I just did. Maybe I made a mistake and said, you know what? I like it more abstract, so I'm going to do that. And I'll do this. Maybe I changed my mind. So I'm going to click on the plus over here for add, and we'll just go back over there and add a little bit more detail in that area, and then back over here. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. And then you could add another area, another area, another area. So I think you got the idea on this. Pretty cool control that we have with something called detailed masking. Now I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to choose colors. Now colors, I'm going to leave it alone, but it just allows you to add brightness, add contrast to your liking. Maybe, what the heck. Just push the saturation up a bit here because this is oil painting, and oils tend to have a little bit more saturation and color. But the rest I'll just leave alone, and then I'll go to lighting. And the lighting, again, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm not going to add any brightness, or you could do a vignette just to show you the amount of vignette you can put. And then there's different categories of vignette, like artistic. I'll just hover over these. As I hover over these, you can see what it's doing. Okay, but I'm going to leave it to none right there. I'm not going to vignette, so I'm going to push that all the way to the left right there. And then after I close out a lighting, the very last thing is, again, one of those things that are very subjective, and that is canvas. Now, obviously, if I'm going to print this to canvas, I'm not going to use this feature at all. But if I'm going to print this, like I have a high-end Epson photo printer, and I typically don't print on canvas. I send it out to a service bureau. They have it printed on canvas because I want them, they'll wrap it around a frame for me and stretch it and all that stuff. I don't have the equipment to do that, nor do I want to do that. But if I was going to print that on, let's say, a photo matte paper or a semi-gloss paper or luster type paper, I might want to add something that looks like texture. And what I would do is, in the drop-down menu here, it's set to cloth, but you have like a brick wall. There we go. You can see that change right there. Cardboard, cloth. I'm just going to go to default thick, right here. And I'm going to, this is set to canvas. I'm going to set it to canvas rough weave. Not sure if you can actually see that. I'm going to go to this drop down here and let's do a 2-to-1. See if that shows up there. There we go. So you can see how that's simulating like that's printed on a canvas. And that's something I would do if I was printing locally and I didn't have actual canvas. I was printing on smooth paper. That's what I would use. But if I sent this out again to a service bureau, the texture is going to be there. So it doesn't make sense to put texture on texture right there. So I'm going to change that. Let me go back to fit. I'm not going to use that feature, but I just wanted to show you that that feature is available for you. And I'm just going to change that to transparent, which just means it's not going to put any simulation of any kind of canvas or cloth backing, or there's like leather as a category, a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, I'm going to click on apply to apply this. I'm going to share with you a little tip that you might like to try in Photoshop. So when I click on apply, that will render out. I'll let it do its thing, and then we'll take a look at a before and after here. And there we go. So here's what we started with. I'm going to hold the Alt key down, Option on a Mac. If I click on the eyeball here, it will just show me that layer by itself and turn off all the other layers. If I do that again, Alt click on the eyeball, or again, Option click on a Mac, all the eyeballs will come back. So there's my quick before, after, before, after. Now, let me share a little trick. I learned this. I've used this quite a few times. I love doing this, and that is I'm going to take the layer we just did. I'm going to slide it underneath the duplicate one I just made. So this is the photograph, and there's the painting beneath it. And what I'm going to do is go to the drop-down menu under blending modes here, and I'm going to choose lighten. And let me zoom in on this so we can see this. Look what it does if I turn this on and off. So that adds the highlights to that. I just like the way that pops a bit. And again, this is, again, very subjective, whether you do that or not. But again, what I did was I took that layer and I put it underneath. So again, if I turn that off, that's the painted one. And this is a copy of the original photograph. And I changed the blending mode to lighten. So that just gives me that little bit of a highlight pop in the painting right there. Okay, another thing I'll share with you that occasionally we'll use, and again, very subjective. I actually taught this one of many techniques in my overlay class, and that is I have this clipping mask icon, not icon, but layer I'm going to drop in here. I just saved it in my libraries category. I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to move this to the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to hold the Shift key down, grab the opposite corner, click and drag to make this fit over our painting right there, and select Enter on the keyboard to accept that. Now what I'm going to do is we'll just pretend the background layer doesn't exist. I just wanted that there for a quick before and after. So I'm going to turn that off. And what I'm going to do is slide this, and we'll just pretend that's the very base, that's the very bottom of our project right there. I'm now going to go to the very top layer. I could right mouse click on it, and I could choose Create Clipping Mask. It's about halfway down on the menu. When I choose that, it puts a little indent with an arrow pointing down here to tell me that that's clipped as a layer. Now, we don't see anything because we have this other layer below. I'm also going to clip this one. Now, a different way of clipping is holding the Alt key down or Option on a Mac. And if I hover between these two layers here, watch what happens. I'm holding the Alt key down, again, Option on a Mac, and it changes to a square with an arrow pointing down. If I click with my index finger, that'd be your left mouse click, I just, again, created the clipping mask on that layer. If I want to release that, I hold the Alt key down or Option on a Mac, go to the same spot, click, and I release that. So I'm going to go back over here because I released both. Let's clip that one. And this is what I would use right now if I was printing on canvas, which I don't. But if I had the ability to print canvas, which I do with my printer, I just don't buy rolls of canvas and I don't have the equipment to stretch it around a frame. But this is what I would push to the printer because the canvas is a natural white color. And wherever you see the checkerboard pattern, that would actually be the color of the paper or the canvas. If I'm printing this on paper, it would be the paper that would show, the white paper or textured paper, whatever. So, but what if you were doing this digitally and you're just going to display this on social media? Well, you're not going to be able to show that as a transparency unless you save it as a PNG, but you want to have a backing on that. So if you save it as a JPEG, it automatically puts a white background for you because JPEG files do not support a transparency. But just for visual for yourself, I'm just going to come down here at the very bottom, and I'm going to add, again, with the Oreo cookie dipped in milk over here, I'm going to click and choose solid color, and I'm just going to choose white and click on OK. And that just added a white background. So it's just helpful for me visually on how that would look as a JPEG if I saved that out. If I save it like this right now and save it as a JPEG or TIFF or some other file, that's what it's going to look like. Okay, now one of my past lessons on YouTube, and it was quite a while ago, I showed you guys how to actually make your own signature and load it in the libraries panel in Photoshop. So I'm going to go find one that I did, and it looks like a signature that I could be using for paintings, and that's what I use. So if I click on this and drag it over here and drop that in, let me expand this a bit. I'm going to rotate that and just choose Enter on my keyboard, and you'll see I have a signature there. I should put this at the very top. There we go, Steve. And doesn't look too good. It's hard to read, but I mean, if it meets your needs, it's fine. But if I double click, because this is a smart object layer here, and I'm going to change the overlay here. So I'm going to double click on that, let that open up, and let me just choose a different color, something like this. So that stands out a little bit more. And you could choose any color you want, obviously, and then click on OK, and we close that out. And yes, we're going to save that. And then there's my signature right there. If I want to pull that down in opacity so it doesn't show as much. And there we go. So again, guys, here we go. This is the before here. Let me do the Alt click. That'd be Option click on the Mac. That's what we started with, and that's what we finished with. So hopefully you learned something. SnapArt is a really great plugin for Photoshop, or again, as a standalone, not a very expensive product. You can do really some fun, creative things with it. Okay, with that out of the way, again, if you hopefully you learned something. If you could do me a big favor again, and that's the old routine of liking this video. That really helps the algorithm on YouTube. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit that notification bell. And until next time, you know that routine, and that is always think out of the box creatively. Get that camera out. Start shooting. Until next time, see ya.